Okay, I want to welcome everybody to our September issue of our Agri-Comfort webinar. This week or this month, we're talking about a cow comfort issue. We're going to talk about deep bedding and how to manage that in your barn. We called it how to keep the sand in the box because we find that a lot of deep bedding actually is sand, but we're talking about solutions of all kinds of materials for deep bedding. Just to give you a quick overview, what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the cow comfort side of things, like the health effects, just very briefly, like why do people even choose the system or why it's worth considering. I'm going to talk about the economic impacts, like what do I have to consider if I want to put this in my barn. And then Martin here will help us understand a little bit what a good solution, what's a good solution for any kind of deep bedding system. And of course, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function of this Zoom webinar, and we're going to tackle them in the end. We dedicated some time, especially for that. Okay, let's get started. So, as you all know, my name is Nele. I'm the host of this webinar series, and I'm a veterinarian from Germany, and I think most people know me by now. But my special guest today is Martin Folkema here from Canada. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Nele. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Okay, so Martin, like I said here in the slide, you're the product manager now of Agri-Comfort. You just joined the team, right?
Yeah, this past summer I joined.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Previous to that, I had my own business called Superior Mat and Comfort, and it was a family business, and we've been doing rubber products specifically in regards to cow comfort since about 1999.
Cool. Yeah, so you're here more in your role with your experience with this kind of bedding and freestall choices rather than your, obviously also because you're the product manager, but because of your deep or long-standing background and experience with this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's been time flies. 1999 sounds far away now when we're in 2020, but yeah, it's I've been being involved in the dairy industry since that time, and there's since that time and moving forward, there's been a real trend in the industry moving towards deep bedded and sand stalls. Yeah. And I think the key reasons is the dryness factor, and I mean, the dryness factor of sand stalls kind of translates into benefits to udder health, the hawks, and longer laying times. So, in fact, when you look at sand and deep bedded stalls, I mean, in places like Michigan, 80% of the barns are sand stalls. In Wisconsin, 70%. So
yeah,
it's a trend.
Yeah, that is definitely something that I wanted to talk to you about too, because I think it's very interesting, me being from Europe and maybe Germany and especially you being from North America, that there's quite a difference in how the dairy farms are structured and how they, it's all freestall barns, but how they maintain the freestall barns and what kind of bedding that shows. Yeah. Well, okay, let's get right into the topic before we keep hanging out here on this slide. Let's just go right in. Okay, so I wanted to start with a little poll here at first to get everybody's blood pressure going a little bit. And I think we already brought this topic up right now a little bit with our introduction. So my first question would be what people are thinking is the main type of deep bedding in the US, because I had data on that, and the main type of deep bedding in Germany. Are you expecting, do your listeners think that there's a difference in that, or what they see, maybe if they've been to both markets? Just give them a second.
I kind of blew that first question, didn't I? I gave them the answer already.
Martin. Yeah, but I also saw quite a few names that are from North America, so maybe people have other experiences than you did. You only talked about Michigan and Wisconsin. I think out west it's still different. And yeah, well, okay, quite a few people chose, so I'm just going to close this poll now. Okay, so here we see, yes, you blew it, Martin. People definitely saying that the common type of deep bedding in the US is sand. Interesting enough, I just, when I was researching for this question to have something to back it up onto, I found a study that was conducted in 2013. So maybe it changed since then a little bit. And they made a difference between farms in California and farms in the Northeast, they called it. So like Wisconsin and Michigan in that area. And they said that the majority of farms, that all of the farms in the West used deep bedding, but only 4 of the farms that they tested used sand and the rest used sawdust. I thought that was quite interesting, but maybe that changed till now. I have to say all the farms that I've seen out West didn't even have freestall barns. So maybe that's a difference too. Well, then here in Germany, now most people said straw, and I would agree with that. It's either straw or a mixture of straw and lime in the deep bedding. And then the next is like separated manure compost is like very trending, but it's also like less freestyle barns, but they have like those big open areas. So it's like where the cows can like roam around freely with compost. That's surging quite a bit, and farmers are building farms like that a lot. Okay. Oh, maybe I should have shown you that. Okay, good. So what are the benefits of deep bedding in sand? Let me try to get our little picture here. Okay, so we looked at different studies, or I looked at different studies. You helped me with great material there, Martin. And I found like some studies from the University of Wisconsin, and they looked into what lying bouts and like how the cows acted with different beddings. And what they found is that herds that were on sand had longer lying bouts, and also that those herds were kept on sand had a higher milk yield and better milk quality. And you can see here in this graphic that it was quite significant how much longer the cows laid down on one like lying bout in comparison to the other textile or to the other materials. And I would say, yes, obviously those numbers are pretty impressive, but there's always like, is lying bout like the best indicator for cow comfort? I just want to raise a little bit of awareness that where there's maybe also overall better herds, where there's overall bigger herds, because that tends to be the case if they have sand bedding. And maybe there were a lot of other factors like the size of the free stalls and stuff like that that I couldn't see in that study that they were looked at. And I think they have a huge impact on how long a cow wants to lay down. Well, the higher milk yield and better milk quality obviously show that the cows were doing better in general. So I would say that is a very good criteria for overall health. Maybe not comfort, but overall health. So that is a strong argument to get sand bedding.
Can I ask a question, Nele? I don't know if I'm seeing what everyone else is seeing, but I have the poll in front of me right now. I can't see the slides. I don't know if that's everybody's experience or just mine.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is it better now? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay. Sorry for that. Well, so yeah, what I was saying is cows on sand lay down longer than on other materials, but you should be aware on how a study that claims something like that was conducted. I feel like the factor cow comfort is hard to measure with one parameter like lying bout. It gives you a good idea what's going on, but you always should like try to think a little bit deeper into it. But generally speaking, the main argument for sand especially is that it makes the best cow comfort and how the cow can like arrange the bedding surface themselves, and they do. And I think you can emphasize on this too, Martin, that cows will arrange the sand and the bedding material as they like. And so there was another study, and they looked into if there was differences on sand bedding, how the cows would lay down, and they found that the level of bedding was had a pretty significant impact on that. So basically, the maintenance of those bedding stalls. So they found if there was a very low level of bedding like under the curb, that the cows were up to 1.1 hours shorter, had 1.1 hours shorter lying times per day. And that is quite significant. We know that we want the cow to use her time budget as best as possible to have the best milk yield. And if she doesn't feel comfortable in her bed, and that makes her like lay down less as she wanted last week, for example, when the level was higher, that will lead to a decrease in milk yield. And they looked even a little deeper into it, and they found that 1 centimeter decrease in bedding led to 11 minutes less spent in the cubicle. And you even told me something from another study where they looked into like inches of bedding material too, right?
Correct. Yeah, it was from Michigan State University. They had a similar study. I believe it was every either half inch or inch below the curb was 1 hour less laying time.
Yeah, but basically the same finding. Like the cows want a high, steady level. It cannot be too high because then the neck pipe is too low. But they want it like basically level with the curb side. Right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So so we have two things here. So we find that cows really like the sand, but it's also they really need it level and consistent to really like it, so to say. And yeah. And then there was another study by Iowa State, and they already like kind of acknowledged this factor, and they tried to find out if cows would tolerate something that they called a sand trap. So like a grid-like structure under the sand that would help keep the bedding material in the stalls. And they found that on sand and sand bedding with those sand traps, the cows had, in both scenarios, had longer lying bouts than they had on mattresses. And the difference between the two types were non-significant in the study. So what they found is cows totally tolerate that. They don't have a problem with anything put under the sand. And what they also found, they looked at the amount of sand that the cows were able to kick out, and and they looked at a specific product there. But what they found was that 69% less sand was kicked out by the cows over the course of the study. So that is a quite high number, and yeah, that was a very interesting finding, and I think it's basically what you're trying to educate people on, that both those things, that like cows don't have a problem with like quite the contrary, they actually like it if there's a grid under the sand, and that it's very, very good to keep the bedding in the stalls. So I would like our listeners again to maybe have a guess on how much sand we're talking here. And so can you see the poll?
I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, so yeah, so I didn't want to go too deep into this, but I think now that this is open, we can talk about it. So what I'm aiming for, what my question is aiming for here, is there are quite some differences in systems between European and American systems, but I like kind of chose the number that I read online and that you also told me from your experience on the like high use of sand, right?
Yep.
I would say it's the normal high amount that farmers that very frequently add on sand use.
I'm not giving the answer this time till the poll's closed.
You're like, I don't know. Okay. Well, okay, so here we see that this is quite a diverse answer field, but the most people chose 5 to 7 tons, and the answer actually is 7 to 9 tons, depending on how much sand the producer puts in. But we're usually talking something like 25 kilos, 50 pounds a day, a cow or a stall. And so that leads up, depending a little bit on the density and the kind of sand that you're using, that is like also factors that way in, to 7 to 9, between 7 to 9 tons a year a cow. And that is a lot, like depending on how much like acres and stuff you have behind that, that is quite a lot of sand that goes into your fields by the end, that goes into your slurry tank, and yeah, quite a big impact. Martin, would you say most of the producers you see using sand are using recyclers?
I'd say, from my experience here, I'd say majority don't, from what we've seen. But then that'd be more of on the Canadian side, and there is, of course, exceptions, but in the US, on larger herds, there is more of a prevalence of both flush lanes to separate sand, and then also separators and those types of equipment to recover sand as well.
Yeah, so because what I read there is that between 50 and 90% of the sand can be recycled. So it doesn't like go straight to your field, but you wash it and put it back into the stalls. But still, even 50% of 9 tons per cow a year, I feel like that's probably the most. They said like very high-tech machines could like do up to 90%. I would assume that most farms have the 50% solution, and then, no, that's a lot. Okay, so that leads to the question, like, what does this cost us? Like, we talked about this, or I said in the beginning, we're going to talk about the economic impact of farms and of especially sand bedding for farms, because a lot of the times people are saying like, oh, well, but it's like cheaper because I don't have to put in like fancy mattresses and not even put in concrete under the free stalls. And I live near a sand mine or something like that, or near a river where this can be mined. It's very, very cheap for me to buy a sand. So it's the cheapest solution. And I don't really think that's true. And we just wanted to allude a little bit on that, what we think is the real cost behind sand. So obviously there's the buying cost, everybody knows that. You need to put it in once, and you also like need to top it off all the time. And what you also need to think about, we saw in the picture before, those big, nice lorry carrier, you need like bigger, heavier machinery than you might have had before. And you will have quite a significant higher wear and tear on all your machinery, on your tractors, on your scrapers, on your manure system. Wear and tear, because the sand has a tendency of getting everywhere. It will erode your machines quite a bit. And you also have higher building costs, even though it seems a little contradicting to what I just said, that you don't have to buy the rubber mats and that you don't have to put concrete under the stalls. But you need to put quite a heavy concrete slab onto the alleyways to support the heavy machinery that carries in the sand. And you also have quite a significant higher cost on your manure handling system. So all of that needs to be in a way that that it's like fitted for the sand. And maybe you need to buy like a separator and all of that. And that leads us to the fact of like the slurry. The slurry is a big, and the manure handling is a big issue with sand, because the sand accumulates here in the manure and slurry holding. Martin, you even told me that some farmers have like little skid loaders like lowered into the tanks a couple times, like once a year maybe, to get the sand out, and that is quite a significant cost to do that.
Correct. There's one local producer I know of, milks 400 cows, and every year he spends $20,000 to get the sand pulled out of his pit. And that's, he has a couple backhoes in, a couple, hauling wagons, and then the skid loader has to be hired out as well. So.
Yeah, and the tank needs to be emptied before and all of that. So, and the pumps and all of, like I said, the scrapers, and again, a lot more wear and tear on those parts. And then maybe a factor that not a lot of people think about too much, because it's not something that will happen overnight, but farmers, I would say, are the one profession that are really, really good about thinking about the next generations and decades. You will bring that soil to your land, and that sand to your soil and your land. And when you want to spread manure, you want to spread nutrients for your plants, you try to build up that humus layer to get more value out of your land when you're growing crops. Sand has one quality in soil. It helps to make it a little bit more porous and like let water go through, but in general it doesn't have like great quality for crop growing, and it will, so to say, water down your soil. It will lessen your soil quality. And when we see like how much tons we're talking per cow in year, this will accumulate quite heavily, and you will degrade your soil over the course of years. So all of these factors, or all of this, is basically, after the sand leaves the stall where it's great for the cow and the comfort, it costs you a lot of money, and it produces quite a few challenges for you. And Martin, do you talk about the soil aspect with farmers? Is that something that was brought up in a conversation before?
Certainly. I think it's on everyone's mind. It's one of those factors. I mean, soil is basically clay, silt, and sand, the three components, right? And I mean, everybody has a different story or a different soil type. And yeah, I think it's probably common knowledge that there is going to be, over a long term, that there will be some sand added to the soil. Yeah. And people do think of that. And I mean, there are other things like, growing cover crops, for more organic matter, and conservation tillage, that they counter those aspects. But it is a given that there is going to be a higher sand component long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you sent me this very interesting article, and I linked it in that source list that I mentioned before, that everybody will get in their follow-up email. And it talks about that the sand has a negative impact on the soil, but that it can be counteracted with good like soil maintenance and just like working up the soil with like non-tilling and cover crops and stuff like that. But those are like, no, it's like those would be beneficial no matter what. It's like, yes, they can like help reduce the impact of the sand, but the sand has a negative impact no matter what. If you would have not put the sand in, the effect would be higher of the other thing. It's not like that doesn't work without the sand. So yeah, just something to think about. We always have less and less tillable land every year due to erosion and so on. So maybe we want to keep it in good shape as possible. Just, I'm not saying it's like a rule out criteria, it's just something that a farmer should have on their minds. Okay, so to summarize all of this, we not only have the price of sand, we also have the higher machinery costs, the wear and tear, the higher building costs, and the higher cost for the slurry system, and the impact on the soil and land afterwards. Well, to move us here a little bit again. So to summarize this, if we could prevent this, that the cows kick out this much sand, and waste that much sand, we would have less of those economic challenges, because besides buying the sand, but I guess they also have to buy less sand if they kick less sand out. Everything else was all the sand in the slurry and manure system that made the problems. And so if we have less sand waste, we also have less economic challenges. And we also have a more consistent bedding, because when the cows kick the sand out, the sand level lowers, and they don't like that, and they don't lie as much. So we could also increase the cow comfort level by reducing the waste of sand. This is why I have you here, Martin, today. So now I talked a lot, and now I'll let you talk. So what is this, and what can you tell us about it?
Okay, what you're looking at is what it says, the Agri-Grid Bedding Saver. It's something we developed basically over, I'd say, the last 7 or 8 years. You know, earlier I mentioned that, yeah, I've been doing, you know, rubber mattresses, and in particular the Huber product, and you know, quality rubber products. But yeah, that whole trend with the industry was going to sand. You know, kind of the early innovators tried putting tires in the stalls to prevent digging. And then that sand trap in the study is a product from about 15, 20 years ago. It was strips of rubber all tied together with cables. So there has been an awareness already in the industry that, you know, trying to manage, you know, sand and minimizing wastage. So there was some other sand saver products on the market, but when we looked at what was available, we weren't really happy with what was out there. So we developed this product you see before you. And the obvious choice was rubber as a starting point, because rubber absorbs pressure. And I mean, the cows are big, so we need to have something that is strong, but then also absorbs the, you know, gives some cushion effect.
You didn't want to like reduce the layer of sand, really, or the cushion layer. Like,
yeah, exactly. So what we did is we've partnered with a manufacturer both in the US and in Europe, and we're using a virgin tire compound. We want very high quality rubber in the sand stall. We've determined that a 2-inch square is the ideal hole size, because it allows for optimal drainage, yet doesn't allow the foot to push through into, you know, a wider hole would allow the cow's foot to penetrate into the base of the stall. So, and then we, you know, over the years too, we've, you know, because we're putting it in a sand stall without a concrete base, we've had to learn how to optimize our installation methods. So we have a tried and true method now that works well for us.
Okay, yeah.
So,
let's
actually,
let's talk a little bit about how you install it. I think that is quite interesting. And can you explain us a little bit how it's installed? So you told me that it's very easy for farmers to put it in themselves.
Certainly. I mean, the one thing we like to have is some type of a stone dust or quarry screenings base for the mat. The optimum installation depth of the mat we determined is 4 inches below the top of the curb. So when you fill the stalls, after the mats are installed and you throw the sand in, you in theory will never see them again, because, you know, as part of stall management, you're still putting sand in the stalls every week. It's just, you're not putting a big glut of sand in, you're just kind of keeping it a level surface. And really, in theory, with the installation, we're creating a subfloor in the stall, a permeable subfloor that, again, allows, you know, we bring it back to dryness, the dryness factor of the stall. We want the moisture to wick away, and then when people are going through cleaning, they can just pull the patties out, and then basically with a rake, you can keep the stalls level. So.
And you see, like, when cows like start digging, that when they hit the grid, then they stop. That's what's happening, right? Otherwise, they would just like dig like a super deep hole, and that's how they kick out most of the sand. That's
right. Cows without sand savers are just deep bedded stalls in general. The cows, when you just bed the stalls, everybody knows this, it's a free for all. They love to go digging and pawing, and they're throwing sand everywhere. And this product is, I'd almost say it's not so much about the comfort, although it is comfortable with rubber. It's actually a behavior modifier, because basically the cows are creatures of habit, and they get into the mode where they're always pawing in the stall. But when this product is in long term, they realize that when they paw at the stall, they can't dig anymore. And I guess I wouldn't say they give up, but they realize that, yeah, I can't.
I reached the bottom.
They can't dig a tunnel in the barn anymore, so they lay down a lot sooner.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, I asked you to like show us a couple barns that you equipped, and what, like, just to tell us something about those producers and what they say about those.
Sure. So we've got customers in the U.S. and in Europe, but the longer we've had these installations in, the more we're starting to see too, as far as behavior. So this Ontario producer in particular, he did mention, the cows, they leave the sand alone now. Like I mentioned, they don't paw, there's no perching anymore. We've changed their habits, really. So he said they come in, they lay down, and they rest, which, it is that, just like that research, a level surface is the ideal surface, because when you have, the research from Iowa showed, like, traditional sand stalls and then sand stalls with any kind of a sand saver, when the stalls stay level, the occupancy rate and the lying rate is higher. And when the stall stays level, he also mentioned that he doesn't use any mechanical leveling. So that's another cost too that's associated with sand stalls. A lot of producers go in with machinery and they'll level the stall off, twice a day, or with a tractor, with a rake or mechanical leveling. And he mentioned he's never done that. So that's a huge savings.
And I once talked to a farmer in England that was interested in one of those like mechanical graders that like have those turning, like it's like an arm that goes to, what I'm talking about, that an arm that goes to the side of a tractor, and but it also has like some turning parts in it, so it like automatically rakes the sand. And that farmer was talking about it, and he was like, well, how hard is it to operate, and like, do I have to do it like every day because I know how to drive the tractor like a profi, or is like my apprentice also able to do it after like 2 days of training, something like that? And I was like, in my head, I was like, I was an apprentice once, and I can't do that. I cannot fiddle in the grinder underneath the free stalls and do this. I was like, if he asked me that, he's not going to get an answer he wants to hear.
It's definitely a precision job. I've seen those machines at work too, and you've got a small area between the bottom of the loop and the stall platform, for sure.
I just, me personally, with my experiences in tractor driving, is like I see a lot of potential of machinery getting hurt here.
Yeah, for sure. But so that's some of his experiences.
No, that's another picture of the same farm.
Actually, I think that's a farm in Ohio, to be but that's okay. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay.
You'll notice he's got, on that one, he actually poured a concrete curb ahead of the sand stall there.
Okay. So
as a brisket,
Yeah. Okay.
But,
you mean this in front? Okay, I understand. Yeah. So is this a common?
Sorry.
No, is this a common thing that people use a curb? I read a little bit about it, that it's like hard to like bolt down a curb because you have no concrete underneath it. So some people like choose to make it like a concrete curb, or like a little floater or something like that.
Well, that type of application, they would have poured a footing first, and then they would have did a second pour on top for the brisket.
Okay, but there's no concrete under here,
correct. That's right. Other producers, like I've got producers, that was the Ontario producers experience, but we've got some producers. I talked to a gentleman from New York yesterday, and then a customer in Nova Scotia, and they're saying, sand savings for the gentleman in New York, he was saying 40%. The gentleman in Nova Scotia actually said 60%, so that was quite impressive with that as well. We also have some producer in Wisconsin and BC. They've both won regional and national awards for milk quality, and they've had no detrimental effects or for udder health or somatic cell count.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's another thing, the sand is a big gain. So.
And something that I was curious about, like, what would be like the smallest farm, like herd size that you equipped, and the largest that you can think about?
We've got some 80 cow free stalls that have put in our product, and we've got 1,200 cow barns with our product.
Okay.
So
I see. So that is like not just like the crazy big 15,000 like in Western US or something like that. So this is pretty medium to larger Midwest kind of size of farms.
Yeah, no, we do all sizes of herds.
All sizes.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, we're starting to get to the end of this webinar. So to summarize what we just said, we do believe that deep bedding can provide a great cow comfort. And I know we talked about sand a lot because it is by far, especially in North America, the most prevalent deep bedding solution. But just to emphasize again, also like green bedding, separated manure is it's absolutely, this kind of material is also applicable to the grid. And they can provide great cow comfort. But it is very important that that you provide the cow a consistent bed so that they have a level, an even level of bedding material. And the grid definitely can help you accomplish that because the cows don't dig up so much bedding material and it stays where it's supposed to stay. And also this less loss of bedding material, and especially if the bedding material is sand, also helps reduce costs on your farm because you have less abrasive sand in your slurry system and your less wear and tear on your machinery. And at the same time, you also have great cow comfort. So there's really no real hook here that we can say, or like catch here, that there's like really big counter arguments to this product, I would say. Well, let's look at the questions. I said in the beginning that we dedicated some time, and so anybody that still has a question, we're basically done with what we wanted to present to you. If anything was left open at this point, please feel free to type it into the Q&A section. And we're just going to go with a question that we have already. Okay, the first question, basically directly to you, Martin, is how long are the rubber mats lasting under the sand? And will they be affected by the abrasive nature of sand when the cows are pawing around in the stalls?
Good question. We've had them in now for 7 years. Our longest dealer is in the UK. He's had product in for 7 years. They're holding up well. And that's, I mentioned earlier, the reason for going with virgin tire compound. We want a very high quality product in the stall. But to add to that, I mean, when you've got that 4-inch layer of sand on top, and after a while the cows develop the habit of not digging, we haven't had any issues with these products yet wearing out. I don't foresee them wearing out in the short term very long. Mm-hmm. So life expectancy, we hope for 10 years plus, maybe 15.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, great. And here's another really good question is, some producers like to dig out the sand in the rear of the stall periodically to remove wetter sand that can appear in the deep stall over time. How do you address this with the bedding mats?
So yeah, that question has come up many times for me. And what we've seen so far with our longest installations, I think part of the reason that people have to do that digging and clean out that back part of the stall is because by not having a barrier where the cow's feet push manure and soiled sand deep into the stall, okay, by having the rubber, our Agri-Grid bedding mat there, it creates a bit of a barrier that doesn't allow that stuff to get pushed down deep. And with daily stall maintenance, we're not seeing any detrimental bacteria counts, put it that way, on the back of the stall. That's not to say long-term maybe the mats might have to be lifted up and that back section cleaned out. But yeah, like I said, 7 years in, and so far we've had no flare-ups from any of our customers.
Okay. Well, I'm a little wary of a time here, or aware of a time, so let's do like 2 or 3 more of those questions, and the rest we would then answer directly to the people afterwards, I would say. Well, a couple of questions were like, what are all the materials that can be used? Is it only sand, or can we do other stuff too?
No, we have customers that use deep bedded shavings or straw and lime together. Yeah, we've encountered almost every type of bedding with this product. Okay. And one thing we always do though is we like to have sand in the holes because fibrous material, we don't want that to plug the holes and not allow the drainage. So you would put like sand and like kind of grate it on the top of the mat, and then you would put the fiber or the organic material on top. Correct. Okay. Okay. Yep. Well, great. Thank you. Another question, basically on the like if you have to lift it up, it's like, do you ever have to take out the grids and re-level the tailings, or some like the underneath the grids? Well, no, that's where the base, if you have a decent base of a packed, tamped stone dust or gravel or quarry screenings, then that hasn't been an issue. Okay. If you have just loose sand underneath the mats, then that could sift a bit. So yeah, you have to be careful with that. Okay. Right. How does it look like, for example, in Germany, there would not be an option to have sand, just pure sand underneath that. We would need to close close that with concrete to collect all dirty water so nothing leaks out. How does that work? So what we would do then, instead of bringing the mats to the very back of the stall, we would actually have a foot ahead, like the last 1 foot, and then the mats themselves, if you have a concrete base, I'm saying, we would put probably 3/4 inch plastic strips underneath the mat so you can elevate the mat up so there's a gap that the moisture can still flow underneath the mat. And then at the very back of the stall, that 1 foot, then daily cleaning, you can clean right out to the bottom and get the waste material out. I see, okay. Because then you would have some accumulation of fluids like that would wake up. Correct, if you have a cement base, then of course, it can't drain away. But then you have that 1 foot open, then you can clean right to the base. I think this is one of the reasons why we don't see that much sand in Europe, because it's like we cannot do the leakage into the ground, and also the methane digesters, of course, just don't cooperate with the sand. Well, how are the mats joined together? We had this like short this little picture there, but maybe you. Yeah, we use on the mats in between the seams, we use a high tensile cable tie. Okay, and then along the front of the mats, we actually drill into the base itself. Yeah, but the mats are like with zip ties, cable ties are tied together. Correct. Yep. So they cannot, like one cannot come up. Correct. Great. And then is it? Do you know what the return on investment is? Like, is that something? Is there a quick answer to that? I don't know if I can give you a quick and easy answer on that, because there's so many variables on every farm. Things that you have to look at, of course, is how much labor are you spending? I talked about mechanical, your initial purchasing costs of sand, the sand removal systems, like I said, with the gentleman that spend money every year. But then, of course, some people say, well, I've got a mechanical separator, or I'm already doing that. I don't need the mats. But if you have less wear and tear, like if you have less sand kicked out of the stall, you also have less wear and tear on your equipment as well. So those are all the factors you have to consider. Basically, what we presented was the economic impact. Some people say 3 years, some people say 5 years. I've heard those numbers. So,
Okay. Well, that's pretty fast for dairy barn, I would say.
definitely.
Like, yeah. Okay, well, so far we actually managed to answer the questions that we had, so that's great. If anybody else has questions coming up later on, oh, here's the new one. Oh. Like I said, feel free to contact us. So, little like advertising in our own name. Me and Anna McIntry from Milk Bar are gonna present the next webinar. It's gonna be on the 11th of November, so that's the second Wednesday in November at the same time. We always try to keep this on a Wednesday in the same time slot. Anybody doesn't like that or would wish something else, again, please contact us. Anna and I are gonna talk about Milk Bar. So it's going to be a calf topic again, and we're going to talk about why we love this picture so much. What's important about it, what's the physiological effect of saliva during drinking, and yeah. So I will send you the link to register that in the follow-up email too, but there will also be, as usual, reminder emails for you guys to join in on that. Okay, well, thank you for listening. Like I said, any more questions, feel free to contact us or go to our website. It's also good information there. And I just put this picture in. It's exactly 1 year ago, Martin, that we met at World Dairy Expo. And I hope everybody enjoyed this presentation of ours exactly as you and I enjoyed the presentation of Peter there.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And there's our contacts. If people have more questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're pleased to answer them. And again, thanks for the opportunity.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.